Good evening, everyone. It's really it's lovely to see everyone on this muggy June evening. Before we begin properly, Luciane, if we start with apologies first.
Yes, we have apologies from Beth Rowland, Linda Galpin, and Nigel Harmon. And I've also been told that Philip Theobald might be a bit late, and the new person that's interested in joining is coming a bit later.
Thank you. And also, there's, just for my benefit, because I missed the April meeting, which Beth very kindly chaired for me. There's quite a few new faces around the table who I haven't even met sort of face to face either. I may have seen you on screen. So, if you wouldn't mind just doing a quick, just introducing yourself. Again, it's more so for my benefit. So, for those who don't know, I'm Stephen, and I'm the current chair of the Sacre. So, Jordan, you're new to us. Very welcome.
So good evening all, my name is Jordan Montgomery. I am the councillor for Woking with Heights and yes, said newly appointed member to this committee from the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Jordan. You're very welcome. Sheed, you're sort of, you've been here probably as long as I have, but it's just...
Thanks, Stephen. Yes, I've been around for a few years now. I'm a member also for Paul Michel Whitegate, but I'm not here as a member today. I'm representing as Faith Islam, and I've been a member for a few years now. Thank you.
John, you're new as well to us.
How exciting. Hello, yes, my name is John Sutton. I am here on behalf of the Church of England. This is my first session, so I'm very excited to see what goes on. When I'm not doing that, I'm also a primary school teacher in Binfield.
You're very welcome. Sam?
I'm Sam Lawless. I'm a primary school teacher for Wokingham.
Nick, I've not met you face to face, but I probably think maybe seen you on the screen. I think of some of our previous meetings.
Yeah, put me in a box.
Yeah, put in a box.
So I'm Nick Barnett. I'm the CEO at Soulscapes. Welcome, everyone. We are a charity that works in primary and secondary schools with young people's wellbeing, spiritual, emotional, and physical wellbeing.
Thank you, Nick. Angela?
I'm Angela Hill, and I am the advisor to Wokingham Local Authority for all matters to do with RE and collective worship.
Emily?
And I'm Emily Wardylove, and I work for Wokingham Borough Council, and part of my role is to be the council person that supports the Sacre and makes sure it's running smoothly, hopefully.
Hi, I'm Claire Wiltshire. I'm a co-opted member representing Humanist UK.
And Jackie, we were just doing a very quick round of introductions. There's quite a few new members to Sacre, so if you don't mind, when you get a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, just say hello to everyone as well. Thank you. Welcome to our new members. Sorry, Luciane, I just totally ignored you there.
I'm Luciane Bowker, I'm the clerk.
Thank you, Luciane. As I said, new members, welcome. We're really pleased to have you on board with us. Moving forward, Emily, Claire, Angela, and Beth and myself, we undertook some of the Sacre, what's the word I'm looking for, Angela? The review assessment tool.
It's the self-evaluation tool.
Thank you. Yeah, the self-evaluation tool. Something that came out of that, which Beth and myself thought would be quite good, is Beth or myself making contact with new members. I clearly failed on that, so I apologise, Jordan and John, for not sort of speaking to you beforehand. But you're very welcome. And if you do have any questions, please do give me a shout. We have quite an action-packed agenda this evening, so just bear with me while I get it up. So the first item is minutes. We just need to confirm that the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of February were an accurate and true record. I didn't attend that meeting. Beth chaired it in my absence.
Just one error. Luciane did share the draft with me. On page 7, the third bullet point down says members asked for more information on the data set. I think that was in relation to the item on the census data rather than the exam entries. I think it would make sense to put that under the item that was about the religion and belief census data.
Okay, so we just get that amended. Thank you, Emily. Was there any other questions or comments regarding the minutes? So just need somebody to propose that they were an accurate record, please. Thank you. That's Shahid proposed them. No worries. And somebody just to second that. Thank you, Nick. Jackie, I'm just going to sort of bounce around a little bit. If you just want to introduce yourself to the group as well.
Yes. Sorry, I'm slightly late. Jackie Rance, Shinfield South Councillor.
Thank you, Jackie. And Julie, I'll give you a couple of minutes before just to get yourself settled as well, so you can introduce yourself to the group as well. Matters arising, Angela, do we want to take throughout the meeting? What do we want to do now?
I was going to do the actually matters arising.
Jordan.
Sorry, it's working. There we go. I just want to check, did you need to take a vote on confirming the minutes? No.
We just
No problem.
Sorry, Emily, did you want to do matters arising?
Yes. Thanks, Stephen. So, so the first one, the secondary school survey, just to remind people and to explain to new members what the context behind this survey was. So at the last meeting, I shared the GCSE results for Wokingham schools for religious studies last summer. And the results are strong and above national outcomes, but there was quite a significant reduction in the number of students in Wokingham entered for the GCSE, which reflects the national picture. And in fact, a higher percentage of Wokingham students were entered than nationally, but still there was some concern expressed amongst the Sacre. And so we had a bit of a discussion about that at the last meeting, and people felt that they would like us to explore with our secondary schools what they do in terms of teaching children at Key Stage 4 and entering them for the GCSE. So Angela and I put together some survey questions, and we shared the draft questions with members via email. And we had some feedback, so thank you to those who fed back. We amended them, and then we sent them out to our 10 secondary schools. We got 6 responses, which I guess a 60% response rate to a survey. I was disappointed, but then actually 60%, I guess, isn't too bad. So in the agenda pack, you have got the questions, and also in red, you've got the responses we got. So this is on page 13 of the agenda pack. So I'll just try and pick out some of the main points that were made. So you can see question 1 was about asking about what are the strengths of RE provision at your school. So we had 3 schools saying they've got a strong department of specialist teachers. 1 school saying we have adequate time available for teaching RE, and 3 schools saying that pupils' engagement in the subject is strong. And in the comments, 1 school said our department is growing from strength to strength. So that's really positive. Question 2 is about the challenges. So some schools saying that they lack sufficient specialist teachers, and other schools saying that they don't have adequate time available for teaching RE. And then some comments about that question. So the second comment, 1 school saying that it sounds as though they do teach RS at Key or RE at Key Stage 4 at the moment, but from next year students will not be timetabled for RE at Key Stage 4. They can choose to do it at GCSE if they wish, and they're not quite sure what the plans are for Key Stage 4 teaching at the moment. And another school, sorry, questions 3 was about Key Stage 4 and GCSE provision. So 1 school said that all their students are entered for the full course GCSE, and the other 5 schools said students can opt for the full course. Going on to question 4, This was about how RE is taught at Key Stage 4. So some schools chose the first option, students receive discrete lessons once a fortnight or more often. One school saying they have discrete lessons but less frequently than once a fortnight. One school saying RE is combined with other subjects. Another school saying it's taught through tutor time or collective worship. One school saying RE is not taught at Key Stage 4. I think that's the school that in the previous question talked about how that will be the case from next year. Yeah. So question 5 was about specialist teachers for GCSE and Key Stage 4. So 2 schools said all their lessons at Key Stage 4 are taught by specialists. 3 schools said most lessons are taught by specialists, and 1 school said some lessons are taught by specialists. And then we asked a couple of questions about Key Stage 5, which is the 6th form. So 1 school said students have discrete lessons less frequently than once a fortnight. 2 schools said in the 6th form, RE is taught through tutor time or collective worship. And 1 school said they teach it in another way. And if you look at the comments below, I think it's that second comment that says some RE is taught during personal development or tutor time. And then 2 schools say they don't teach RE at Key Stage 5. One of those schools doesn't actually have a 6th form. And the other school has commented below about how students, it's the first comment saying students have the option to opt for A level, but it's not taught to all students. And I think we should note that it is actually statutory to teach RE at 6th form level to all students in some way, isn't it, Angela?
It is, yeah.
So question 7, is RS A level available to students? 5 schools said yes and 1 school said no, but I presume that's a school that doesn't have a 6th form. And the final question was, are you aware of the support provided by the Sacre? And all the 6 schools said yes, so that's positive. I should say that this survey was schools completed it anonymously, which we felt would encourage more schools to respond and to respond honestly. But obviously Sacre might want to follow this up. So Angela and I had a bit of a discussion. Just to finish off going through, there are some general comments at the end about what support would schools like. So 2 schools gave comments in answer to that question. And you can see there they had some useful ideas for us about the support they would like. So ideas about how to embed RE at Key Stage 5, help with guest speakers, some training CPD on Key Stage 3. And this is an interesting comment that Angela and I talked about, more direct contact with head teachers and subject leaders, making it clear about the expectations regarding the delivery of RE. So maybe teachers feeling that, you know, they would like the Sacre to help them, if you like, stress to head teachers and leaders in schools. This is what the statutory requirements are for RE. So yeah, some interesting information there. So something Angela and I talked about, obviously those comments about what support schools would like, we can have some discussion about those and make sure we're addressing those. But that comment about they would like us to contact head teachers and leaders, we wondered about maybe following up this survey with contact with head teachers, where we would ask them kind of similar questions and see what comes out of that. And then we could follow it up. If there are any schools that are not fulfilling the statutory requirements, we could then follow it up with saying, thank you for your responses, just making sure you do know that these are the requirements, and is there any help we could give you to help you to fulfill those requirements. And I guess also thinking that we'll be launching a new syllabus quite shortly, that's also a really good opportunity to remind people of what the statutory requirements are. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything there, Angela, because you helped me with this.
I think that was a really comprehensive summary. I would say that, you know, as advisor, there is some clear indication that some schools aren't fully compliant with the legal obligations around RE. That's something for us to think about as a Sacre. Emily and I have discussed it at quite some length, and we feel that stepping in a supportive way will be beneficial, rather than you know, some Sacres do tend to send out letters that sound quite didactic, sometimes a little bit scary for schools. So just making sure that Sacres, that schools know that we're here to support, setting out what the legal obligations are and how we can help them to meet those obligations, I think is the way forward. But it'd be really good to hear people's views.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Angela, for quite a comprehensive summary of that. There's a couple of thoughts in my mind. The last point, Angela, you mentioned regarding the statutory requirement. If it is statutory, isn't Ofsted picking it up?
That's a really good question. Our experience is that that Ofsted don't often comment on RE or RS in schools. They are an inspectorate and they're not a compliance organisation. So I actually work for RE Today and NATRE, the National Association of Teachers for RE. Is part of our organisation. I have a colleague who is charged with the an enviable task of going through all of the inspection reports as they come up, looking for references to RE and RS. It's infrequently mentioned, and when it is mentioned, it's usually in regard to the quality of the provision that is there, not really commenting on non-compliance. However, it does sometimes get picked up, and I think schools and school leaders need to be aware that it can. There is a chance that it can affect the outcome of an inspection if non-compliance is picked up by Ofsted, but it doesn't happen very often.
This seems quite strange to me, right? I mean, if it's non-compliance, then who actually will pick up? Maybe it's my naivety, I don't know. Who actually will pick up the non-compliant part? If it's not Ofsted, is it left to the, Sacres? They don't have any powers as such. So I'm just wondering, so this seems like something is, you know, if you want to do it, that's fine. If you don't want to do it, okay, that's okay as well. And there's no penalties or nothing, you know. But I thought something is compulsory. Well, if it's statutory, to me, maybe it's a simplistic approach, the way I'm thinking, that it has to be done.
Yeah.
And somebody, you know, needs to be accountable for that if it's not done. Maybe I'm taking a very simplistic view here, but maybe you can correct me.
You are right that Sacre does have a role in monitoring the standards and compliance with the law around RE and collective worship. However, Sacre doesn't have any powers to deal with non-compliance other than an advisory role. So our role as a Sacre is to give advice to the local authority, and then the local authority acts upon the advice that we give. So if we have a discussion today and we vote to write to schools in a supportive capacity to help them to make sure that RE provision is compliant, and you know, more importantly, really to make sure that students have a really good experience, learning experiences of RE as well. then we can give that advice then to the local authority, and that can be actionable. But we don't have, you know, any sort of mechanism for penalties at all. So yeah.
Thank you. That was the first point. Sorry, that was the first point. There's two further points, of course, so that's okay. I mean, certainly I will be supportive of that view. I think if we can support Sacre in a supportive way, I think that's what our role should be. We're here to support and help and encourage. And I'm sure that's probably, it's obviously I can't speak on everybody's behalf, but I think that certainly would be my view. Secondly, it says the comment about taught by specialists is 2 schools where they've got specialist RE teachers. The rest of them, either they've got part specialists or no specialists at all. Am I simplistic in doing that? That probably will have some impact on the results as well. Normally, you would think that if a specialist teacher, I don't know, the teachers here in the room, they probably know better, right? But common sense will tell me that if you're a science chemistry specialist teacher, you're more likely to deliver your contents better than somebody who is non-chemistry, teacher. Similarly, the same concept with an RE, I assume, will apply as well. And then I'm just thinking further, right? Is that because specialist teachers are not available? I mean, I'm just trying to think what is the underlying causes of that would be, because I can see there could be potentially impact on the result. I'll just say the last point as well, and you can actually the CPD training. Is actually CPD training available for teachers? Obviously, I'm assuming there must be some sort of CPD RE training available. And if it is it actually, are they aware of it? Are they widely publicized? Can Sacre maybe advise them, look, this is what is available, and they can probably take that up?
Okay, so on the first point regarding specialist teachers, there is a recruitment crisis for specialist RE teachers. That's at initial teacher training level, and that's having an impact on teachers going into schools. So we're hearing all the time that there is a shortage of specialist RE teachers. I think as well as that, we have to bear in mind that RE is probably, it is a subject that is taught more than any other, apart from maybe PSHE, by non-specialist teachers. That has something to do with the kind of value that's placed on RE in schools, that sometimes, if a school is under a tight budget, then the teacher who's got spare timetable time can be put into RE to teach those lessons and so on and so forth in a secondary context. So I think that's an issue that's not unique to Wokingham at all. I think that's a nationwide issue, and that's something that is being challenged by NATRE and other organisations like Culham St Gabriel's as well, who do lots of campaigning to try and ensure that students are taught by specialist teachers. Also, the Ofsted Research Review said some really positive things in regards to the urgency to make sure that non-specialist teachers have adequate CPD to be able to deliver RE competently and confidently, and that ideally RE should be taught by a specialist teacher who knows their subject really well. In terms of professional development opportunities, in terms of professional development opportunities for teachers, I think it's a strength of Wokingham Sacre actually that there is a lot of provision. One of the things that we're going to come to later in the agenda is the difficulty that we've been having trying to engage secondary teachers in particular. We've got a really strong primary network, The secondary network, we don't get, you know, really good attendance on that, and we've thought long and hard about how we can tackle that and how we can engage teachers, you know, from doing a cross-based face-to-face network where, you know, transition projects can be worked on and so on, to you know, having a special CPD event. We've enlisted Julian Bushell as well, who's helped us to advertise and try and engage teachers, but it's an ongoing challenge for us to get secondary teachers to engage. Again, that's not something that's unique to Wokingham. Primary teachers tend to be much more amenable to CPD. They just come along to more CPD events than secondary ones do. Haven't quite cracked the reasons for that yet. And things like timetabling the professional development, so it doesn't coincide with exam seasons. And you know, so we've really thought hard about how we can make that happen. And also, there's lots of other CPD out there that you know, outside of Wokingham and Sacre, which we make sure teachers are aware of in newsletters, bulletins, and so on. And there's a lot out there. So when I do the updates later, you'll see that there's a whole wealth of different opportunities for secondary teachers. So there is a lot out there for them.
We've talked about, haven't we, Angela, maybe a way forward for secondary school CPD is maybe having a discussion with the hub about how do other SACREs offer their secondary school CPD, and can we share ideas, or could we do some CPD jointly as Berkshire? So yeah, there's ideas. Yeah.
Firstly, well done for continuing talking. Must people wandering in and out. So my question really just helps back to the statutory requirement point. So I won't harp on about this. I must say I'm surprised that it's not an area that's inspected or monitored by Ofsted. That's new to me. What happens to the 40% of schools in our survey that didn't respond? Because we don't know whether they are or not. And if they don't respond, and maybe a question you can't answer, but how do we address that? How do we ensure that they are meeting their statutory requirement and or refer to the local authority if necessary?
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I think one way forward would be, as I was saying or suggesting, we could follow up this survey with an email to every head teacher, which would obviously not be anonymous and it would be addressed directly to them. If they don't reply, there's actually nothing we can do about that, other than, as you say, letting the local authority know, which is me, so I will know. And obviously I can discuss that with my colleagues in the school improvement team, but especially nowadays, as things are with the relationship between local authorities and schools, while we can do all we can to make schools aware of the requirements and to make sure we're sharing good practice, if they choose not to engage, we've done all we can, and there is actually nothing more we can do. I don't know if you agree, Angela, but we're limited in what we can encourage as much as we can and share information as much as we can, but ultimately we can't force schools to do anything.
That's right. Yeah, we're an advisory body, so we can only advise that if they're not compliant, then they may fail inspection, for example, or and more than anything else, they're not giving pupils their entitlement to RE.
Thank you. It may be a non-issue because maybe the schools respond and they give us a lot of information. Is it something that at the next Sacre meeting we can have a report of the schools named and shamed, who are and who aren't, and who haven't responded, if any, so at least we know what we're dealing with, because it may be, as I say, a non-issue.
Yeah, sure. In terms of naming schools, I would suggest that for the Sacre, I'm aware that this meeting's streamed live on, so we have to be careful about what we share. I would say I could share with you, for example, 4 schools do this, 3 schools do that. Sacre probably doesn't need to know the schools' names, but we can certainly, if Sacre would like us to, send that email to head teachers with similar questions and summarise for you the information that we get back at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Are there any other? John?
Hiya. I just wanted to ask you a question about the question 5 and question 6. There was a note in there about a couple of schools teaching. It said that the RE is taught through tutor time / collective worship in one school for Key Stage 4, and then RE is taught through tutor time / collective worship in 2 classes in Key Stage 5. Now, I mean, I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not a big fan of collective worship, but to my mind, it's a different thing to RE and RS, and the way that those 2 things are put together concerns me a bit. I just wondered what your view on that was.
My view is that you're right, they're 2 different things. Collective worship and RE are very different. RE is an academic subject with a syllabus, and collective worship is a whole school responsibility. So yes, they're very different things, and I think that's something that we can address when we write to head teachers and school leadership.
Jordan.
Thank you. A few of my questions have already been answered going round anyway. What I want to ask, you mentioned there's an issue with RE decline due to its lack of perceived value within the schools when they're budgeting and when they're having other financial constraints. Is this at a similar level to other non-STEM subjects, or is RE sort of uniquely challenged here?
I can only say what I know about RE. So I can't speak for other subjects in any kind of informed and researched capacity, but anecdotally, it's the STEM subjects and English that get the most funding and the most time on the curriculum in most schools, I'd say.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? No, thank you, Angela.
Sorry, just to comment on what was just mentioned. I suppose as a Sacre, that's a challenge for us. How do we increase, work towards? I suppose like a marketing role, isn't it? Sacre, and why the schools are not seeing this as a value. What can Sacre do? Not only us, but across Berkshire collectively, to work with school in a supportive way so they are perceived as a value. I think that's more on the marketing side. I think promoting the subject of RE. I know it's been discussed before as well, but perhaps we need to think again as a strategy moving forward. What can we do in this space?
My experience, and Angela, you'll jump in as well. It's a national issue, and my experience of working in many schools as well, as Angela said, and ties a little bit what you were saying, Jordan, is RS is always the first thing to go. As soon as any budget cuts, it's the first thing head teachers will go. As Angela said, it's STEM, English, and then your humanities subjects, because the back. He does get a lot of money, so I think we're just massively squeezed, unfortunately. But I think it's a really good point, Chief, in terms of sort of marketing, and I think it's something we can discuss with the new syllabus and maybe sort of roll it into that as well, about how we can promote it in another way. Things to think about. Are there any other questions? Chief?
It's not a question again. I don't know, some people may or may actually disagree with it. This actually I find is very fundamental, because this is about values and it's about people's behaviors, and that actually has impact on people's education as well. So they are linked, right? I think, and there's a lot of evidence to show that as well. So it's not just simply, can drop this subject. Actually, it has I strongly believe it has an impact on other subjects because it's based on fundamental values.
300%, and I think for me, it's the glue that holds all the other subjects, and it's community cohesion, isn't it? I think if you think of the world we currently live in, I think it teaches children, young people, values, morals, and equally about different people and community. I just want to thank Angela and Emily for their time on this. I think this is great. I would like to take a vote in a second on the proposal that Angela and Emily send a follow-up email, a supportive way to head teachers. I think, had you asked me 10 years ago, a much younger head of department, Stephen, would have been like, no, bull in a china shop. But actually, can't think of a better analogy, but you do catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So I think definitely let's go with a supportive approach would be my advice. So I do just want a quick show of hands if we sort of give Angela and Emily authority, permission, whatever the word may be, to get in contact with our head teachers and follow up. That's unanimous. So all of us agree. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments before we move on to item 3B? Good.
Would the follow-up survey be shared with members of the committee beforehand? Or could they be?
I imagine the questions will be pretty similar to the questions we ask the teachers, but we can certainly circulate them, can't we, Angela? We'll put together, yeah.
We can. And I think what might be really important is to, well we've surveyed RE leaders within schools, and there may be something to be said for using this survey as a platform for opening up dialogue with school leaders.
Any other questions? Item 3B. So Emily, I think this is you, census data.
Yeah, so again, this is following up from the last meeting. I shared the recently published national data and Wokingham data from the census in 2021 on religion and belief. And people had some questions asking me if I could dig into the Wokingham data a bit deeper and find out some more details. So there was a question about what are the trends going back 50, 60 years? Is there more information about age and gender? So in your agenda pack, starting on page 17, this is designed to be looked at online. So what I'll do is I'll let Lucy-Anne have the web link where you can find this data so you can explore it. We'll put the link in the minutes. But there's 3 web pages, if you like, that you can look at. So on page 17, the first page is some more detail about the results in Wokingham compared to the southeast. So the purple in the graph is the southeast, I think, and then the lighter green is England and Wales, and the darker green is Wokingham. So you can see how Wokingham data looks in compared to the southeast and nationally. And we talked at the last meeting about how one of the main findings of the census was that a large proportion of the population, around 30% nationally and in Wokingham, responded to say that they had no religion, which might not necessarily mean they don't believe in a God, but they don't affiliate with any organised religion. The second page is really interesting, I think. So this is page 19 of the agenda pack. This is about neighbourhoods in Wokingham. And there's actually a drop-down box in the top right where you can select a religion, and you can see that this is a printout where I'd selected the religion Hindu. And where you see the darker shading on the map is where more Hindus live in our borough. And obviously the lighter colours are where there's fewer Hindus. So you could select different religions and look at the picture across the borough if you go onto the website. And then the third page, which is page 21 of the agenda pack, is how the data for 2021 compares to the census 10 years ago in 2011. So 2011 data's in green and the purple is 2021. So it's quite interesting to see, for example, the percentage of people that have identified as Christian has reduced quite significantly between the two censuses, and the percentage who have said they have no religion has increased. I did try and go back further than 2011, but it's not very, you can find the data for Wokingham in previous censuses, but it's quite a fiddly job to make comparisons. So the data is out there on the internet if any of you would like to do some exploring, but this was what I was able to find, which I think does provide some more interesting detail. So yeah.
Thank you, Emily. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you. That was really useful, and actually, it's really interesting to see how like things have changed. Like it's fascinating, and this is perhaps my sort of ignorance as well. So I didn't realise just how much Hinduism is in the area actually, and like it's larger than national. So yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you for that, Emily. Item 3C, Sacre self-evaluation tool.
Yeah, sorry, this is me again. So this arose because Sacre recently published a self-evaluation tool that Sacres can use to evaluate themselves. And it's a very large document. So we discussed it with Sacre members previously, and it was agreed that rather than discuss it in a Sacre meeting, which would take a lot of time, we would hold a separate meeting and we would invite Sacre members. And as it turned out, we've had 2 meetings to discuss this tool since our last Sacre meeting, and present at the meetings was Stephen, Beth, myself, Angela and Claire. And what you've got in the agenda pack is several slides that I've put together trying to summarise. Basically, we went through the tool and we tried to rate ourselves as a Sacre, whether we thought we were advanced or established or developing, or I can't remember what the bottom, I don't think we ever ranked ourselves in the bottom one.
Need of support, isn't it?
Yeah, in need of support, yes. And in some cases, we had some quite useful discussion where we actually, looking at the descriptors, it gave us some ideas for how we could possibly develop and improve our Sacre. So we don't have time for me to take you through all of this, but I'll just maybe pick out a few areas that we particularly discussed. So the first section is about management of the Sacre and partnership with the LA and other key stakeholders. And you can see we thought we were advanced in terms of 1A, how well supported and resourced is Sacre. Sacre meetings, when we discuss this, there's a suggestion in the descriptor for established that Sacre members are given opportunities to talk about their work. And we actually thought that was a good idea, that perhaps at every meeting we could encourage at least one member to give a little presentation for 5 or 10 minutes about their faith or their work for Sacre members. We thought that would be an interesting feature maybe to add to our meetings. And as Stephen was saying, 1C was about membership of the Sacre and training for Sacre members. And we had a few ideas about how we could support new members to the Sacre. And as Stephen said, one idea was that the chair or the vice chair would get in touch with that member to have a chat with them before they come to their first Sacre meeting. And we also thought where people join representing a faith and they don't work in a school, perhaps some members of Group C who do work in schools could perhaps offer that member to visit their school and maybe look at an RE lesson, come to collective worship to help them to learn about religion and collective worship in schools. So that was another idea we had for new members. So over to members of Group C, if any of you would like to invite John and Jordan to your school, there's an opportunity for you to maybe do that. We also had some thoughts about, at the moment, when we have a vacancy, we don't really have a set procedure that we follow to recruit new members. We obviously encourage Sacre members to let us know if they've got any contacts who might be interested, but I thought I could work with Lucianne perhaps to put together more of a robust system that we follow when we've got a vacancy, and what organisations can we contact, for example. So we did have a useful discussion about that 1C section. What other bits should I pick out? Yeah, there was, we talked about collective worship quite a bit. So under 1E, we thought we were advanced, but it says Sacres receive detailed and well analysed information about the quality and provision for RE and collective worship. And we thought we're strong in terms of RE, but in terms of collective worship, we wondered whether perhaps members of Group C who work in schools, particularly if they're members who deliver collective worship, could perhaps present at some Sacre meetings to help us to know what goes on in collective worship in schools. That'd be great if you're volunteering, Julie. Fantastic, thank you. In terms of 1F, this was about partnerships. And we did feel that we don't have, because we've got Sacre members like Nick who work for organisations like Soulscape, we do have links in that way with some organisations. But other than that, we're not great at our links with local organisations. And I realised that I know that Wokingham used to have an interfaith group, and I don't know if that group still exists. I don't know if you know, Shahid.
Well, and for the last few years, and there hasn't been a single meeting, I think. So yes, it's inactive at the moment.
So I'm just looking through other bits I could pick out. Yeah, so 2D, our communication with schools, we rated ourselves as advanced because we have a lot of communication with schools via our school's newsletter, Education News, and we're always sending emails to RE leaders to make sure they know about our network meetings and to share Angela's updates and things like that. Sections 3 and 4, we actually didn't discuss because section 3 is about the effectiveness of the syllabus, and we felt that a good way of addressing that section would be for us to suggest to the hub that they could perhaps consider that section when they're planning for the syllabus review. Section 4 was about collective worship, which we felt we'd already covered actually. And section 5 is about the links between RE and community cohesion, which we found a little tricky to discuss because while we, I think, feel that RE does make a really important contribution to community cohesion, we weren't sure to what extent it was really Sacre's remit to get involved in that and to what extent we have capacity as a Sacre to get involved in that. So, yeah, we had some interesting discussion, we made some notes, but ultimately we weren't sure whether that was quite Sacre's role. I was mentioning to Angela actually when we had our pre-meeting that there's an interesting new report that's been published on community cohesion just last week. I think it was published, that actually Angela's organisation RE Today was involved in producing, and it lists for schools different programmes that they could use to work on community cohesion in their schools. And a couple of the programmes that are included in the report are directly to do with RE teaching. So that's really good that that's a government national report that looks, I think, about 10 different programmes, and 2 of them have a really strong link with RE. So that's really good to see. So in terms of this self-assessment tool going forward and how we use it, having looked through it and discussed it, we decided there are some really useful bits in it and some bits that are not so useful. But we thought we could have, every now and then, we could have a meeting to review ourselves against the tool, just picking out the bits that we feel are the most useful and feedback to the Sacre. And that maybe this summary, like we've got in these slides, we could include in our annual report every year, perhaps. So that's kind of where we've got to with it.
Does anybody have any questions? Sam?
It's more of a comment than a question. In terms of coming into school, anybody's welcome to come into Shinfield Juniors. It's almost a shame because 2 weeks ago we took part in the spirited arts competition, so we had a week off of half. The whole of the school was off timetable to work on spirited arts. So that would have been a really lovely time, an opportunity to come and hear the children's voices and to see what was going on in school. If an event like that was going on, who's the best person to contact to and say, where would we put that and say, come on in?
That's a really good question. So I would say either myself or Luke, and then we can share that with members and with you if they'd like to visit.
Yeah, it's just that I have to pick the winners, so the whole school have got an entry, so that would have been a perfect opportunity for you guys to have seen it, but there'll be other chances like that. So if I do that in the future.
Love to get the invitation. I love to come. And also going back to the point you make is, just from my point of view, so how RE is delivered, just be maybe a fly on the wall, just sit and observe. Certainly that will increase my understanding. I know we sit here, but I think for us, the real learning for me would be to see how things are done in the classroom. I'm not sure whether many of the members actually who are non-teachers have visited the classroom where it's being done, but I think that'll be quite good education for everyone. So I'll be happy to come along if I get the invitation. I don't want to turn up just without the invitation. Yeah, so whenever it's available. Just to another point, Stephen, if I may, you mentioned the interfaith group for Woking. I thought that was, when it did work, it was quite good, actually extended arm of Sacre, not officially, but actually working with as partners as well. And a lot of the messages of Sacre was being promoted through that. So I don't know who's there, but I would like to get that activated if possible. So I don't know if you got any contacts perhaps, or. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to sort of work with them and see if we can activate it, but I can see lots of other benefits of that as well. I mean, end of the day, it's community cohesion. We're bringing communities together, better understanding. And it does help the community cohesion in a greater sense, which is meeting the government agenda anyway, right? So I think it's a positive thing.
Thanks. I had a comment and a question. The first one was about 1B, the suggestion that Sacre members could present for 5 to 10 minutes at meetings about their faith and how it impacts them. I'd find that very interesting. And the one about 1C, membership and training, I noticed just looking at the makeup of the Sacre that there's lots of people who've got experience in primary schools. But there doesn't seem to be, as far as I can tell, representation in secondary schools. And I wondered if it was worth adding a point there. I imagine it's something that's.
Sorry, yeah, we did discuss that actually. I think it was Stephen that suggested it would be good to have a secondary member, which I think would be great. The reason we don't have one currently is because when we last had a vacancy on Group C, we tried quite hard to ask for a volunteer from a secondary school to fill that vacancy, and we had no one come forward. And we had primary colleagues that were really keen to join. So it's tricky, but we can certainly try again for a secondary rep, because that would, yeah, it is something we're lacking.
Thank you. Forgive me. I was unsure of the sort of makeup of that group. So is there a sort of limit of the number of people in Group C are the maximum?
Yeah. So each group has X amount of people who are part of that. So within Group C, it's normally people from education.
Yeah.
So historically, I was a secretary teacher, but I left the classroom about sort of 18 months ago to move into more sort of advisory work. And as Emily said, we have begged, borrowed and stole to try and find a secondary colleague, but it's definitely, it's on our radar.
Brilliant, thank you. So would it be possible if there was somebody at secondary school that wanted to be involved, could they be co-opted in some way? Is that a possibility? Okay, thank you. Are
there any other questions or comments for Angela, Emily?
Wondered, actually there was 2 bits about how you're planning to take the actions forward. Are you kind of going to group them up? Because a lot of them, I don't know, my sense was that there were quite a lot of quick wins really, that there's nothing too chunky in there, and the plan was just to kind of go through them.
I think we thought about things that are quick wins, as you say, like Sacre members presenting to the rest of us about their experience, their faith and their work and so on, and also the points that we've raised about engaging secondary member and so on. We will be proactive in taking those points forward as far as we can. And we're also thinking about how we can get Sacre members more involved in schools. The whole point of a Sacre really is that it's for the benefit of teachers and pupils in schools, and learning experiences around RE and collective worship. So we did discuss things like maybe having our summer Sacre meeting at a school or at a place of worship and so on. So yeah, we anything that's actionable in there, Emily and I will meet, and we will think about how we can take those things forward.
The other part was kind of a question about I suppose I don't really understand our relationship with Sacre. Is that how you say it? But so I think some of the ones where we didn't find it useful, so like the community cohesion piece, I don't know if that's an opportunity to feed back to them about our experience of using that. So in terms of them, I don't know, improving it or changing it. But I suppose having heard now that there's kind of like a government document about community cohesion, because I felt like when we spoke about it, it was seen as community cohesion wasn't something that there was so much of a focus on, but maybe there is kind of going forward.
Yeah, we're very guilty of speaking in acronyms and jargon on Sacre, I think. So please ask us if there's anything that's unclear. So NASACRE or NASACRE, however it depends whether you want to be posh or not. They are the National Association of Sacres. So they are not actually a legal body, but they're a voluntary body that seeks to support Sacres across England. We pay a membership subscription to them, as do many Sacres around England, and they provide support, advice, a website with lots of information and guidance on it for members and Sacre advisors and for local authorities as well. And their annual conference, which has just been as well, is a really good event for us, and it's a way of celebrating what Sacres do. And acknowledging the really important work that goes on in Sacres around England. As a way of feeding back to NASACRE, we are going to put the findings, our discussions about the self-evaluation tool into the annual reports. There is an annual analysis of the annual reports that get submitted to NASACRE. It's not statutory that we send our annual report to them, but it's good practice, and that's what we do. And then David Hampshire, who is charged with that duty for them, will go through all of the reports and look at what we have found useful and what we haven't. So we're a good Sacre in that respect, because we always have a kind of clear line of communication with NASACRE, and that's mutually beneficial.
Thank you, Angela and Emily. John.
Sorry, just very briefly. I thought I heard you mention about having a meeting like this at a place of worship or something like that. If that could happen, I'd be very keen to help. If St Paul's could host something like that, I'd be keen to work with people to see if that's something that we would like.
Historically, for actually, I look around the room, and I think Shahid and you were probably the old timers of Sacre. We did used to have people present. I don't know if you remember way back when we used to be in Woodley. I'm going back years now. And every sort of meeting, we would have various sort of members come, and they would, and schools would sometimes come along and present things. So it would be good to sort of revive that, equally visit places of worship as well. And any other questions or comments before we move on? Emily, it's you. Item 4, how are things working in schools? I always find this part of the meeting very interesting to see how things are for our schools.
Thanks, Stephen. So Yeah, so I think that all that I've said about schools actually in our 2 previous meetings this academic year continues to be true. And it's interesting that actually there've been several reports published recently, national reports, that really confirm what the situation is in schools at the moment. So something I've said at every meeting is that schools are still working really hard to support children to recover from the pandemic. And that's not only academically, but in terms of behaviour and social skills and well-being and personal development. And there was a government report published in February about children's well-being during the last academic year. And that found that there were some positives, but there are greater levels of anxiety and children saying that they feel lonely, and more, particularly for older children, more mental health issues. And the sort of factors that were mentioned were family finances, concerns about the cost of living, negative experiences with social media, and also worries about national and global issues like the war in Ukraine, the environment, social inequalities, things like racism. So, yeah, that's an interesting report. Something else I've mentioned before is how schools are particularly working to help children from disadvantaged backgrounds to catch up, to recover the learning that they lost during the pandemic and the other ways in which the pandemic affected them. And there have been a couple of national reports published, particularly looking at the ongoing impact of the pandemic on disadvantaged children. So interestingly, a government committee actually published a report last week. They're called the Public Accounts Committee, but they actually were very critical of the government and saying they need to provide much more support to schools to recover from the pandemic, with more funding for tutoring, more support to improve attendance, and they need to implement their special educational needs improvements as quickly as possible, because those are all areas where schools need support. I've talked before about how attendance rates are worse now than before the pandemic, so that's something that schools are working on. A big challenge for schools at the moment is recruitment. We've talked about the problem with recruiting RE teachers, but it's actually across the board, and also retention with teachers leaving the profession. And again, there was the school workforce census, which is done every November. The data for that was recently published, and that shows that currently 5% of all teaching posts are vacant. A higher percentage of teachers are leaving the profession before retirement. So actually now over a third of teachers leave the profession within 6 years of qualifying. And the number of days that teachers are absent because of sickness has increased. There's also been a report on teachers' working lives that said 20% of teachers work more than 60 hours a week. And it talks about high levels of stress and mental health issues, with workload and Ofsted being 2 of the key factors in all of that. And obviously there have been some teacher strikes recently, and there may well be further strikes. So there's been an increase in special educational needs, and that's very much the case in Wokingham. And there is a big plan to improve specialist provision for special needs in Wokingham that's ongoing at the moment. We continue to have lots of new Ukrainian children and children from Hong Kong coming to our schools. I think the numbers of Ukrainians has slowed a little bit, but the numbers of Hong Kong children, I think, it continues to be very high. And obviously that's something that schools have to put time and effort into welcoming those children, settling them in. Obviously, some of them have well-being needs, particularly from Ukraine. Some of them have SEND needs. So I think to sum up, I would say that schools are even more busy and more under pressure than I've ever known. So I don't know if our school colleagues would concur with that, but yeah, that would be my summary.
Yes. Yeah, it is really, really busy and really, really stressful.
And just on that, with you saying about Hong Kong, Ukrainian. There's also a big emphasis on language there. And there's a big emphasis from Ofsted and for English particularly about increasing vocabulary, well, in all subjects actually. So actually that's another pressure on teachers is upscaling vocabulary. And that's also something that's been impacted by COVID too, and being out in the pandemic, being in year 3, we're really teaching kind of the year 2 curriculum still and up-levelling vocabulary so the children can understand, especially in reading and phonics.
Thank you, Emily. Are there any other questions or comments? Sheed?
So question stroke comment. I think it's an interesting comment you make there, right? I think regarding teachers leaving the profession, which is not specific to RE, but it's across the board. I've seen the same thing actually in the medical profession as well. A number of them, young doctors, actually are leaving the profession as soon as they get qualified. So I don't know, this generally I think we have as a UK PLC issue. I'd just be interested to know from the teacher's point of view, why do you think that is the case? Just for why? Is that because they're not being recognised, or the compensation packages they've got, or stress? Is it probably multiple things? It's probably all combined, isn't it? 60 hours of work is obviously, that does have impact on your family life as well. I just would like to hear the comments from the teachers.
I can obviously only talk from my point of view. I can't talk for everybody. My frustration with my job is always that I can't ever finish anything, and I can't. So, for example, today I was late, but we had moderation for our year 2 after school. I had to prep for tomorrow because I've got to be at another school tomorrow, and I've got to leave that for a cover teacher. I then came here and I've missed the sandwiches. But it is relentless. So I have actually been off work this year with mental health problems, with stress. I acted up last Easter. We had one class that had 5 different teachers in the year, and that's before we had the supply teachers that covered when the teacher we'd appointed dropped out. And the impact of that on that class and on the turnover of staff was huge. It was just 1 year when all the things that everybody talks about actually happened in the school that I know of. And the stress of trying to manage that is enormous, because you're juggling something that you have no control about, and you're being held accountable for it, basically. So if there is no teacher there, you cannot put them in front of the class. That's the bottom line, and the class has still got to run. So that in itself is very stressful. You know you've got Ofsted coming, you know it's not right, yet it's kind of like waiting for the death knell. When it came, it was fine, because it they said you're not right, and we were like, we know we're not right, and now we're on the path to improving, and it's a lot easier to do that because that pressure has come off now. There's not going to be coming in anyone reporting it to everyone that we're not doing it right when we knew we weren't. So that is really stressful to deal with. We now have a full staff. We've got people in classes, and the whole feel is very different because of that. I don't know if I'm answering your question here. I have had a risk assessment put in place because I worked too hard. I was working all hours. I worked all summer, and then I just crashed. Within point. Yeah. So there was risk assessment put in place. I am sharing personal information, and I'm aware of it. Thank you. And that risk assessment gives hours that I should be working and when I should leave. And it has been manageable up to this point, but I've looked at June and I just can't. There is too much to do in June that has got short deadlines, because everything in school has a short deadline. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my personal experience.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, I can tell you from a secondary perspective, it's very similar. I left because I just had enough of all the politics and all the stress, the ridiculousness of it, and I personally wanted a work-life balance, and I now get to spend my evenings and weekends being a dad and being with my children, as opposed to having to think about, I need to do this bit of marking, I need to do this bit of planning. And as Julie said, you just don't have enough hours and time in the day to get what you want to do, and then your holidays are taken up and walking human. So yeah, that's just, again, very personal sort of on my end. Are there any other questions or comments? Sam?
The only other comment I make is that you don't go into teaching for the money of it, and it's heartbreaking. You're trying to do your absolute best for the children, which is why you do all of those extra hours. And you know that the SEND provision isn't there, and you know this thing isn't there. You're just doing your best. And I think that takes a massive mental toll too, because you know you could do better.
Any other questions or comments? Angela.
I was just thinking from a secondary perspective, it's really enlightening to hear from a primary perspective as well. If we're thinking about a secondary RE specific context, if we go back to the answers in the survey, if teachers are having classes once a week or once a fortnight, then that adds up to a lot of classes on a teacher's timetable. From my experience, when I started teaching RE in a secondary school, in my first year I had 21 classes, including an A-level class of 32. So the stress to manage there and knowing all of your pupils is really, really difficult. So in a way, when we're thinking about secondary engagement with our training and CPD opportunities, we have to think about it in those sorts of contexts as well. And that's not going to be the reality for all secondary teachers, but it will be for some. And I think we need to be, mindful of how much CPD we're asking teachers to engage with in their own time. It used to be the case that that you'd have a half day off timetable or a full day off timetable. You go out for your CPD, but now it's online and it's after school. So I think we need to, really think about the pressures as they relate to our teachers in primary and in secondary as well.
Thank you. Also, just mindful, Becky, you've just joined us. No, you're fine. I don't know if you just want to say hello to everyone and just introduce yourself. You just need to push the button right at the front. Just so you're aware, we are being streamed on YouTube.
Yeah, so I'm Becky Medlicott. I'm the curate at All Saints Church in Wokingham, and I've been involved in schools for many, many years in different ways. So it just kind of felt like a bit of a natural interest and a natural fit. And I know Nick down there have done quite a bit of Soulscape. So yeah.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Press the bottom again.
Or else you just have the camera.
Yeah, don't want that.
And Julie, Becky, I was going to say there are sandwiches I think still available. So if you do want to grab some, all I would say though is don't push your mic because then the camera will zoom in on you while you're having a sandwich. Are there any other questions or comments for Emily? No, and thank you everyone for sharing your feedback there. I'm assuming this is a tag team, I'm guessing, development plan, Andrew and Emily.
You are right, Stephen. I'm going to be really quick with the development plan because it's more of the same from last year, really, but with some of the developments around the syllabus put into the mix as well. I have noticed that I've made a typo, which makes it look like autumn 2024 comes before spring 2024. So that was a moment of madness on my part. So we should have on the development plan summer 2023, autumn 2023, and spring 2024. So apologies for that slipping through. So really, the main points of the development plan is a business as usual. We have well-attended meetings where we are more often than not quorate and in a position to make decisions with the different groups all being present. We have encouragement here for Sacre members to participate with schools, with RE and collective worship, and we've talked about that quite a lot already. We've given some insight here into what we're planning for the syllabus review, which is ongoing and which will feature later on in a moment or two. And really, I think that's all I need to say on this, and just open it up to anybody's questions, really, unless Emily wanted to ask something.
Just going to add, Angela, that the only thing that's slightly different this year from last year's plan is that this year we put on some CPD for secondary schools, and as we discussed earlier, the attendance for that was so low that we felt we needed to explore alternative ways of working with our secondary teachers, which we will do, but at the moment the plan doesn't include that. But other than that, we still have our secondary network meetings and our cross-phase network meeting that secondary teachers are invited to. So we do have support for secondary teachers, but just not quite as much as we had last year. Maybe, sorry, Steve.
So they jump to the budget as well, and then we can take.
Yeah. So again, the budget plan, which is on page 49, there's really very little to say about this because the items that are included are really exactly the same as for last year's budget. You might notice that the total sum that the costs come to is slightly more than it has been in previous years, and that's simply because we've had to budget a little more for Angela's time, because not that it's up to Angela, but RE Today, who she works for, have slightly increased Angela's daily rate, which has been, they've kept it really low for many years, but they said, really sorry, we're going to have to slightly increase it this year. So that's the reason for that. But other than that, it's really pretty much identical to last year.
We are also in a very fortunate position compared to other Sacres. Whenever we attend the hub, quite often, I won't mention names because we are being streamed, but they'll go, what budget? And we sit there and we're like, we're always very well looked after by Woking. So it was always a very healthy budget. Are there any questions? Shahid?
Just a quick one. When we actually look at the budget for next year, is an inflationary sort of percentages taken into consideration as well? I mean, how does that work out? I mean, is that the same as last year, or do you work out some percentages plus obviously the additional cost as well?
That's a really good question, Shahid. And I did have that discussion with colleagues in finance about how, you know, obviously costs do increase. Obviously, consultants' fees are going to increase year on year. And they do appreciate that. They won't officially say to me, we're allocating you an extra X amount of money. But if I say to them, this is what we need to carry on doing what we've done in previous years, they're happy for us to do that. So they will cover the costs of inflation, I think would be the way of answering, without officially increasing our budget, if you know what I mean.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nick?
Do you think it might be useful when we send out our email or letter to head teachers to ask them how we can deliver effective CPD for our teachers? So sort of add that as I presume it's not on an existing question that I've missed, but you know, might be good to add it.
Thanks, Nick. Angela's really good at, whenever she does meet with teachers, it's always on her agenda to talk with them about what they'd like her to cover in the future. And that's working really well with the primary schools, isn't it, Angela?
Yeah, really well.
There's really good discussion about what they want support with, and then Angela puts it in place. And sometimes a massive benefit for us of Angela working for RE Today is that sometimes Angela will say, well, I've got a colleague that's actually a specialist in that, so I'll ask them to do that at the next meeting rather than delivering it herself. So that's really strong. But yeah, good idea. We can ask about that.
And maybe part of that could be how it's delivered or when it's delivered. Yeah. I appreciate teachers under massive pressure. The last thing they want to do is to spend their evening on amassing some CPD. So maybe some other way. I don't know how, but some other way of doing it that would actually fit in with them or work with them.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? No. So, Angela, item 6, feedback, teacher networks and training.
Segued nicely into this one, I think, talking about training. So I've just given a really brief overview on page 51 of the agenda pack of what's been going on in relation to training and network. We did have a cross-phase face-to-face network on the 7th of March. It was primarily attended by primaries, and we did have one secondary teacher who came to that, who comes to virtually everything we do, which is great. And we talked about engaging learners with RE, and every network meeting we give updates, national updates, local updates, and there's lots of opportunities for teachers to discuss matters, share best practice, and also talk about their current context as well. Secondary CPD on the 30th of March, it was actually rescheduled twice. It was rescheduled from December because of low attendance, and then again because of a strike day. So we are really trying to be as flexible as we possibly can, but we still not getting those teachers to us for the secondary CPD. But we are going to continue to try, and also to get the Pan Berkshire hub involved to see if we can pool with them to do some joint training across the Berkshire schools to get secondary teachers really sharing ideas, resources, and good practice with one another. So it is an important thing for us that we are going to try and drive that forward as much as we possibly can. So the primary network, we had that on the 25th of May, and that was well attended, and we talked about the syllabus samples that we're going to have a look at later today. And that discussion will be informed by that meeting. And again, they had the updates. And it's interesting actually that when teachers fed back to me via email with about the syllabus samples that they've looked at, a lot of them said how useful they find the CPD time to be as well. When teachers actually come, they're always really positive about what they get out of it. It's just really getting the secondary teachers to engage, as I've said. So the secondary network that's coming up now, I'm going to have a really good look at those survey answers and come up with something that I hope will be engaging and get secondary teachers in front of me on the screen so they can get some benefit of CPD there. You'll notice that it's scheduled for the 5th of July, and that's been done so that the exam sessions are over, and hopefully they will have some gained time in order to be able to engage with some training. So we're being as strategic as we possibly can there. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions about the training opportunities that we've provided.
Angela, just to add, Angela's already put together, very organised, all the dates for our network meetings and training for the coming academic year, which are to be confirmed, but I can share those with members, and we'd really encourage, as always, any Sacre members that want to come to any of those network meetings or training sessions next year are more than welcome to come. And actually that secondary network on the 5th of July, if anyone wants to, it's online. Yeah. So any of you more than welcome to come to that.
Again, so item number 7 is national updates, including Sacre updates.
Okay, so I'll be really quick and just go through some of the highlights. So we're on page 53 of the agenda pack. So the main thing to update on is the Sacre conference and AGM. I attended that on the 22nd of May. Really important just to point out that Sacre members are very welcome to put themselves forward for attendance next year. It's quite typical for an advisor to attend with a Sacre member, so it'd be nice to have someone partner up with me next year, so I'm not all on my own. And it's a really good day with lots of innovation being shared, and just making connections with people, because it's face to face. a nice event for networking and seeing what goes on in other Sacres across England. There was a report to Sacre by Dr. Catherine Wright, who is the CEO of Culham St Gabriel's, one of the big organisations that supports RE in England and some in Wales as well. She talked about Sacres as strengthening voices, so strengthening teacher voice around RE and collective worship, and faith voice and local authority voice as well, as being important for representation of communities, faith and belief communities, and also having an important role in celebrating what's going on in relation to education around religion and worldviews and collective worship as well across the different local authorities of England. She did talk about some challenges and some opportunities that she saw as being the major factors at the moment. Multi-academy trusts, that the idea of multi-academy trusts can make things a little bit complex. We've been talking about this in relation to the syllabus, in that an academy doesn't have to adopt the locally agreed syllabus for that particular local authority, but it has to have something that is at least as good. So it can be quite challenging. And we talked about whether we had a multi-academy trust link on Sacre, and we do. So that is good. Support it. How can Sacre support understanding of RE and collective worship? We've talked about that quite a lot tonight, and also represent faith and belief. We had some keynote addresses that got us thinking really about politics around education and the emerging landscape of education and how RE fits in with that. So I'll leave you to have a look, and you can ask me questions about that if you like as well. I do have some slides to share which are now being made available by NASACare, so I'll send those to Emily so that you can all have a look at those at your leisure. One of the things that was said in relation to Sacre weaknesses was limited money and resources, but we've already talked about how we are a well-resourced Sacre, so we are in an enviable position. Some of the points that came out of David Hampshire's talk around the analysis of Sacre annual reports. There's a PowerPoint for that, so I haven't made notes on that particular talk. But he was talking about how we need to be careful really, that advice given to the local authority has to come from the whole Sacre. So I think that's something we should be mindful of as we move forward, rather than advice coming from me or Emily. How can we make sure that the advice comes from everybody collectively in the Sacre? And he also said that not all Sacres submit their annual reports, not just to NASCA, but to the DFE as well. So we are fully compliant with that too. So that's all very encouraging. In terms of other news that's going on with RE, there is a new acting subject lead for RE recently appointed in March, Hazel Henson, so very new in the role, and so it'd be really important for us as an RE community to be mindful of that. In terms of promoting the status and the position of RE, the Children's Commissioner, Dame Rachel D'Souza, she's actually a former RE teacher herself, and somebody who values RE very highly, and she has an in conversation with a former pupil. I've given the link there, and you might want to have a little listen to that. RE competitions, we've already heard about Spirited Arts being mentioned, which is fantastic, and the themes there are laid out. There's also the wire competition. So widening inclusivity in religious education. Probably, I would imagine that lots of schools in Wokingham could easily get that award. It's just for teachers to attend an RE specific CPD, which we provide at Wokingham. So that could be a way of motivating teachers to come along to those events. Either arranging a visit to a place of worship or a speaker, and either entering an RE competition like Spirited Arts, or inviting parents to an exhibition of pupils' work. So quite a nice way of recognising good work that's going on in RE in schools, I think, and not too onerous either. I've given some on page 57 some ideas and just some signposts really to some of the really good CPD that's out there for teachers, most of which is free. There's a lot of CPD that's being provided for early career teachers and trainees as well. RE podcast is really good, and I recommend it to anybody really who wants to, have a listen to something that is very focused on the RE classroom. Some really great guests that Louisa has on that podcast, and a good way of getting some great subject knowledge and insights into RE and in the classroom as well. It's very classroom close. Some news there about membership packages for Natre as well. Self-study courses from Culham St Gabriel's. So these are courses that are, online learning platforms that teachers can engage with to increase their specialisms in RE. And Understanding Humanism has got a whole new revamped website as well, which is getting some really great feedback from teachers. There is an ARIAC conference. So ARIAC, another acronym there. So the Association of RE Inspectors, Advisors and Consultants. But you don't have to be an inspector, advisor or consultant to go along to the conference, which is on the 2nd and 3rd of July. There is that there are still places left for that if anybody is interested in that. The RE hubs are now up and running. So that is an initiative to connect people in regions. In Wokingham, we have a hub that's led by Justine Ball, who's a very experienced primary RE teacher and an advisor. And it's a way of having a website that's a one-stop shop for all different aspects of RE. So things like visiting speakers, there's accreditation for places of worship and visiting speakers, a little bit like the Crossing the Bridges project, but on a wider geographical scale. And there is a secondary survey that Natre are doing as well for secondary teachers of RE. So I would say it's important for them to engage in that kind of national initiative really for teacher voice in RE, so that we can get a clear picture of what's going on. So that's those updates for you. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
I would just add, Angela, that every time Angela produces these brilliant updates, I pick out all the things that are directly relevant to schools and share them in our schools newsletter, so they get all of this. Yeah.
Any questions?
Yes, I was going to ask about some of the competitions. So the wire award, is that a new award? Is that running for a while?
I think it's been running for a while. It's not something that the organisation I work for does, so I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I think it's been going for a few years now.
And just on that, would it be possible to find out if any of our schools in Wokingham have received this award? Before I try and pronounce that word again. including if they've entered into the Spirited Arts competition as well.
I can certainly give you some insider intelligence on Spirited Arts, but not the Wire Award. But that could be something that we ask schools, maybe, if we
we can certainly ask in network meetings, for example, but we don't really have a mechanism otherwise for finding out. But obviously Spirited Arts is run by Angela's organisation, so yeah, last year actually one of our secondary schools entered some really lovely work that Angela shared with me, and I then got in touch on behalf of the Sacre with the head teacher to say, you know, the Sacre really enjoyed looking at your students' work, and so that was really nice.
Sam, would you mind sharing some of your pupils' work in the what did you say for the maybe the autumn meeting, possibly, if we can send a few pictures maybe to Andrew and Emily, and then they can put on like a PowerPoint, and I'm sure we can share a screen on Teams or something. It'd just be lovely to, it's always just quite nice to see.
Well, I was just going to ask about one. We might want to stream this.
Yeah, is there it? I included a link.
I don't see it.
If I not,
we're reading last
if I haven't, but if I've been remiss enough not to put the link there, I'll send the link to Emily for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Andrew, I'm just thinking item 8 with the hub updates and the syllabus review. How do you want to do it? Because I realised when I was talking to you earlier, what I was discussing is down as item 11. So I don't know if you want to do hub updates, and then should we do review afterwards, or what's best?
I don't mind, actually. I think but for the hub updates, really, the main thing that is happening in the hub is the syllabus review. So I think it's the same item, really. So so it's up to you, really.
So should we finish the main bulk of the meeting in a second, and then we'll do syllabus review. So for those of you just so you're aware, who are new to us, every about 5 years, is it, Angela? Every 5 years, we have a statutory duty to review our syllabus. We can delay it if there are reasons, i.e. a pandemic, which is probably a big reason why we've delayed our syllabus review. And that's going to be a big project for us that's going to be sort of coming up and on the cards. And we're going to talk about that if we finish the main bulk of the meeting. So just to confirm, so the dates of our next meeting is the 6th of November, 2023. And normally our autumn meeting and our spring meeting for our new colleagues, they are held online. So they'll be on Teams. And then also the 19th of Feb, 2024. And again, that'll be at 6:15 on Teams. But it is all on the agenda pack if you can if you have access to that now. And we'll set the summer term meeting probably in the autumn, I would have thought. Yeah. And just in terms of, I said, the main bulk of the meeting, if I just go around the room if there are any other business. Shahid?
2 points. I was just thinking that in terms of promoting the RE, this came up, how can we promote the RE across different schools? I was thinking, could there be some sort of competition we can run perhaps across Woking schools, the best project, RE project, and maybe, being, like a panel and reviews, and I don't know, something could be, compensate, even a small award can be given, right? Something, it doesn't have to be huge, but I think that will see if this generates any interest. So this way, at least, people are taking part. I'm not sure what the response is going to be, but is that something worth considering as part of actually promoting RE subject through our schools?
I think it's a really lovely idea, Shahid. My concerns are that the syllabus review is a huge piece of work that the Sacre is about to fully get underway with. And I would just have a little concern about capacity. I would think if there's some Sacre members that want to get together and plan what that competition might look like and put together some information that I can share with schools, and maybe Sacre members are the judges, I'm happy to sort of support Sacre members in doing something like that. But personally, I think myself and Angela, our Sacre time is going to have to be focused on the syllabus review. I don't know what you feel, Angela.
Yeah, I think so. I think I agree with that. I would say, though, that the launch of a new syllabus is a huge opportunity to promote and raise interest and raise the profile of RE in schools. So I think we will do whatever we can to seize that opportunity and to make it as valuable as possible in that respect as well.
Yeah, we could talk about having some kind of launch event, can't we, that we make as exciting and engaging as possible.
I mean, we could maybe put in the school's newsletter something there to ask schools to respond if they've engaged in an RE competition like the Spirited Arts, or if they are working towards the Wire Award, to let us know so that we could help and support them and celebrate their successes. So we could try and open up that sort of dialogue with them, couldn't we?
Thank you. Just secondly, point was still just one update. You said there's anything event has happened recently. Remember that we used to do that before as well. So, as you know, for Muslims, month of fasting finish in May. Every year, what we do, I basically organise it, invite all the host community throughout Woking and Reading as well, from different faiths groups, and I'm glad we had about 100 people. Different churches was represented, different gurdwaras. There was all the councillors from all political parties were invited. They attended in large numbers. There was a representation from police as well. I think altogether about 100 people attended. I think one was obviously a small talks. One of them was about why the purpose of fasting, why actually the reason rationale behind it. And that was for some people, they actually, because it was held in the mosque as well, in early, you probably know, and this happens to fall in my ward as well, in Whitegate area. So a lot of people actually, for them, it's the first time visit to the mosque as well. So they find that useful. Also learning about the Ramadan, that was useful for them. But also what I did was invited a member of a local GP to talk about fasting and the medical benefits of fasting, if there are, right? Or intermittent fasting, because some GPs actually recommend this as intermittent fasting as part of the treatment as well. So actually that went down so well. The feedback was so positive on that. That itself forget about the fasting, that talk itself was actually the more highlight of it. And then obviously we shared food as well. And it was well actually appreciated by the police as well. They had the opportunity. Area commanders were there, Woking, Reading, a number of others. So I thought it was a really very successful event. But I thought it's worth sort of sharing it. I did actually pass on to Sacre members, but I'm not sure. Probably busy in your schedule. I don't think there's any representation from Sacre, but I do remember forwarding the message to all the Sacre members as well. So maybe next year.
Going around to the room, any other business? No, just the final thing from me in terms of the main part of the meeting, just it's been a pleasure to be chair again of the Sacre for this year. And as I say every year, I'm not precious. If at any point anybody next year would like to take over as chair, I'm more than happy for someone else to take over the chair. But honestly, it's been a pleasure to work with such amazing and committed members. And our young people are very lucky to have all of you working with them and in their lives. So that's kind of the main official Sacre stuff for this year, academic year, done. Angela, I'm going to hand over to you to start sort of leading us on the agreed syllabus conference.
So the important thing is to just to explain that we are in the process of reviewing our syllabus, and it has been delayed because of the challenges of the pandemic. And now we are in a position across the local authorities that make up Berkshire to move to an agreed syllabus conference. So the slides that we have that start on page 15.
I'll share them on the screens.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, actually, Emily. They just set out what an agreed syllabus conference is. Essentially, it is usually, but not always, doesn't have to be, is usually the same people that make up the Sacre, but it is legally a different body. And it has a different purpose, and the purpose of the Agreed Syllabus Conference, or ASC as we will call it for short, is to be established by the local authority, and to recommend a locally agreed syllabus for RE to the local authority. We have to be unanimous in that recommendation. And it has to include committees, which are the same as the groups of the Sacre, but they're called committees. And there needs to be at least one member for every for each of the groups or committees. There is no provision under law at the moment to have co-opted members as part of the Agreed Syllabus Conference as official members. However, they can come to the Agreed Syllabus Conference and have a voice at the Agreed Syllabus Conference. And the difference between them and the full members of the Agreed Syllabus Conference is that they don't get to vote for our co-opted members. What we are going to do today is just have a look at some syllabus samples in relation to the current syllabus that we've got for the Pembrokeshire Agreed Syllabus that is 2018 to 2023. And just really to open up some discussion around three samples that the not the Agreed Syllabus Conference, but the Pembrokeshire Hub have kind of identified as three quite different syllabuses, but ones that can get us to really think about and discuss what pupils in Wokingham and across Berkshire will need from RE. I think, Stephen, what we need to do, I need to maybe consult with Emily here as well, is agree on who our chair is going to be. So we can actually elect a chair as the Agreed Syllabus Conference ourselves, or legally the LA can appoint a chair. So
I think it would be good to take a vote if people are happy to do that. I mean, yeah.
I don't have any sort of preferences sort of either way. So I don't. I think historically what we have done, and again, we've been around sort of long enough, you and I, we've done this a few times, syllabus reviews, is, and Angela sort of described it quite nicely earlier, is that as a Sacre, we just sort of come back, everybody comes back as part of the ACS. So we don't form like smaller committees, so we're all involved as part of it. And then what we've done is working with our advisor, they've gone away, worked with the hub, and then they bring things back to us, and then we have agreed the syllabus moving forward. So in terms of us moving forward, I guess I don't mind, Emily, how you want to do it. We can either elect a chair, or we can carry on as we are, or you can appoint.
Well, maybe we could just say, I mean, I know I've had some communication with Stephen. I know he's happy to chair the ASC if people would like him to chair in the same way that he chairs the Sacre. So maybe we just vote on whether people are happy for Stephen to chair the ASC. Does that sound like a good plan? So yeah, could you raise your hand if you like Stephen to chair the ASC part of our meetings going forward? Right, thank you.
And I'm not precious, like I said, if anybody does.
Maybe I should just say that in terms of the sort of legalities and the rules around the ASC, Angela's been doing some exploring, and NASICA recommend that Sacre members sort of get permission from their nominating body to sit on the ASC, but that's not a legal requirement. It's just a suggestion. So what I would recommend is that if you are in contact with a nominating body or a place of worship or a school or whatever, that it might be good for you to mention to them that you're currently involved in helping to review the syllabus, but we're not going to require you to get any kind of formal permission or anything. So, yeah.
Angela, you just mind explaining to members in terms of sort of the business of Sacre, just will there be much difference for them, or what are things going to look like?
I think the real difference is that all of the discussion will be focused around the agreed syllabus for RE. If we have a look at slide 61, on page 61, rather not slide 61. Sorry, it's all right. I'm sure everybody can see it in their pack anyway. So all of the discussions that we have as an agreed syllabus conference will be around the kind of key questions that are set out on that slide. So really, we're thinking about what our pupils need from their RE provision. How can an agreed syllabus best serve children at different stages in their education? What mixture should there be of formal content? So, learning about religion, learning systematically about, Islam or Sikhism or Christianity and so on and so forth, as opposed to thematic work. What sort of provision should there be within the syllabus, maybe of group work, personal discovery? Not all of this is necessarily the job of the syllabus. Some of this is the job of the teacher in the classroom, actually. But we can think about, whether, how detailed we want a syllabus to be, or how open-ended. At the moment, we've got something that is particularly open-ended, and how useful that is to teachers is open for discussion, really. And really what we are thinking about, the key thing that we're thinking about is what impact do we want RE to have for our pupils in Wokingham. As an agreed syllabus conference, we are the agreed syllabus conference for Wokingham. We are working in partnership with other agreed syllabus conferences across Berkshire, because as you'll see, we have a pan-Berkshire syllabus, which spans across those 6 unitary authorities. That's not a typical thing. Also, it's not something that we have to continue with. We could actually decide that we want to have our own syllabus apart from that. But I think it is in our interests, if we can, to work alongside those other local authorities in order to produce a syllabus that's shared across those different unitary authorities. And one reason I'll say that as well is because the resourcing that goes on behind it has been done in collaboration with so many other teachers, and we'd be limiting our pool of who we could call upon for help to resource any syllabus that we put in place. So the options are we can write a bespoke syllabus ourselves with the other, either as just Wokingham on our own, or in tandem with the other unitary authorities across Berkshire, and that could be done as a blank page exercise, or we could build upon what we've already got in the locally agreed syllabus already. There are other options available to us as well. There are locally agreed syllabuses that are in operation across England at the moment, which could be bought in by the Sacre or by Pan Berkshire Hub and used across the hub. So to that end, what we thought it would be wise to do, sensible to do, as a first step, as an agreed syllabus conference, is just to have a look at the syllabus that we've already got, and also have a look at some sample pages from 3 agreed syllabus models that are currently in use across different parts of England, different local authorities in England as well. Now, at this point, I have to declare an interest because one of the samples, not recommended by me to look at, but by another member of the Plan Berkshire Hub, is a syllabus that is commercially available from RE Today, and I work for RE Today. So I have had discussions with Emily and Stephen around that, and I'm happy not to be part of the conversation. But I just wanted to be really, really clear with everybody that there is that interest there. However, this is a discussion, and there's going to be that there isn't a sales pitch involved here. What I would like to do is to just give you the opportunity to have a look at some of these models or pages from these models, see what you think, and also have a kind of an insight into what teachers have said so far, really.
Yeah, so Angela's already shared these models with some primary teachers at the network meeting, and we've also emailed it out to secondary schools. So we've started gathering some feedback from teachers that Angela can share with you once we've had a look.
Sorry to interrupt you. If anybody hasn't got copies of them, there are copies at the front just here of all the different sort of models and also the feedback from the teachers as well. Sorry to interrupt. Just four bits of paper.
Yeah, so I think the one to look at the moment is the one that's got the blank table on the front.
Yeah. So I think you'll see that the current model is quite open-ended. It's inquiry-based. It's based around sets of questions, but it does set out what pupils should deal with at different stages of education up to the end of Key Stage 3. At the end of Key Stage 3, it is assumed that pupils will have the opportunity to study and recognise qualification in religious studies or something closely related to religious studies. However, we know that's not always the case. That could be something that we consider in our discussions as well, of course. So would you like to just have maybe 10 minutes just to have a little look at the syllabus that we've already got and maybe just flick through some of the samples? We're not expecting anything kind of hard and fast from you this evening. Just so if you could just write some of your observations on the front sheets, one between two, then that would be really, really helpful for us. And of course, we can give you the opportunity to email us any thoughts that you have after today's meeting as well. And then the next step then will be to inform the Plan Berkshire Hub of any feedback that we've got from you as our agreed syllabus conference.
And please do get more sandwiches if you want to have a sandwich while you're
absolutely.
discussing.
Yeah, very important. And coffees.
Yes.
everyone. I'm just very, very mindful of time. And I can hear some amazing discussions, and I really hate interrupting you sort of when you're having some great discussions. But like I said, we did say 10 minutes, and I'm mindful it is 20 to 9. So Angela, I'm going to hand over to you.
So hopefully that's been a useful exercise in just having a look at what we've got compared with what other options are out there and available. I will ask if you can, either in your pairs or individually, if you can, it doesn't have to be all filled in, but that front sheet, that front table, any thoughts that you just want to jot down and just hand back to Emily and I would be really useful. But we just wanted to give you also an opportunity to respond after you've had a little bit more chance to reflect and take in the information and to have a look in a little bit more depth in your own time, really. So Emily is going to send the samples out. Please don't share them though, because there is copyrighted material in here. So it's for your eyes only. And if you can just have a look at them in your own time as well, and any thoughts that crop up, or if you look at them and see something else, and then when you look at them afresh, and not quite as late at night, then send us any further thoughts that you have by the 7th of July, did we say?
Yeah,
If
great.
that's okay, because then we can feed that back to the hub. We just wanted to make you aware of what teachers had said as well. So we've got these two documents here, which we've anonymised. The first one, that's a couple of pages long, is the feedback from the teachers network, the primary teachers network, on the 25th of May, just to compare your thinking with what teachers are saying. So the main points from that meeting, we had quite an in-depth discussion, was that teachers they're really concerned about workload. They're really concerned with having to reinvent the wheel and take on a lot of new stuff, but they also understand that they do need change from the current syllabus, because there has been a lot of new thinking in RE. So for instance, now we have the moving away from this 6 big world religions paradigm towards a religions and world views paradigm. If we look at the syllabus that we've currently got, there is no engagement with non-religious beliefs at the primary phase of education, and that needs to be addressed. So they're just some examples of some changes that teachers do appreciate are necessary. There were lots of other things discussed as well. Also questions around support materials. So I will say that all I can comment on there is the support materials that are available with the RE Today syllabus, but we can look at what's available for the other syllabuses, should there be an interest in maybe adopting one of those syllabuses as well. One teacher did comment that she found the RE Today one's good value, but of course at the moment the teachers are currently supported with the Discovery RE as well. So there's lots of different things to take into consideration here. And I've just given some kind of headlines of what teachers said. I think that they thought that none of the syllabus models that they looked at were too radical a departure from the kind of RE that goes on in their classroom. Sample B, which is from Norfolk, primary teachers said that they would find it a little bit theoretical, a bit hard to get to grips with maybe. But and perhaps that some of the questions were a bit too challenging for some of the pupils that they teach. But this one here, where we've had a response from, this is just from one secondary teacher here, where we haven't, I don't think we've had any other responses from secondaries, have we? But this secondary teacher does seem to favour the sample B, which primary teachers have said is a little bit complex for them. So what we need to do really is kind of negotiate really a way forward that takes into consideration teachers' voice. That's really, really important, and provision, what we need to do for pupils in terms of their provision and learning experiences in RE, and our local context, thinking about what faiths and beliefs need to be represented, but also as well the national and global context of faith and belief as well. So it's a little bit of a challenge really, coming up with a syllabus that is really good and really fit for purpose. So this is our first agreed syllabus conference meeting. I would like to just open up to discussion for any sort of initial comments or questions that you have. But really, I just wanted to start off our thinking and get us to engage with some of the syllabuses that are out there, like I say, and just to start reflecting on whether how far, to what extent, what we have already meets the needs of our learners in our current context. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. It's a bit of a
shade. Talking too much today. Just a couple of points, just a high level. I'm just thinking, I remember, Ms. Stephen, we went through this exercise a couple of years ago, and it required a lot of time and effort, resources required. So let's not underestimate the time required to go through this whole thing, right? That's number one. Other thing is that I think for us to do it just individually and not to work with Hub probably is not a good idea. Last time we worked very closely with other Hubs, members. I remember having, weekend or evenings, everybody getting together and really thrashing it out. I'm sure. So that's probably the resources could be shared in terms of time, but also I'm sure there'll be financial cost as well. That could be shared as well. So that's beneficial. I can't see, Wokingham Hub, Sacre syllabus is going to be so much different from Reading, Sacre or Slough or whatever it might be, right? Others. So I'm sure there's so many similarities there. So that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense actually to work with them and share our resources and obviously save in times and money as well. However, actually, we need to look at the question of what the feedback was. That's another question. What was the feedback on this existing syllabus we did 5 years ago? What was good? What was not so good? And what are the learnings from that? Probably we need to incorporate that learning as well. And also, I think moving forward, if you're going to work with Hub, how does that work? We have some representation from here. Is it 2 people, 3 people? I don't know how does, or do we have any limit to how many people can go to that? Our official representation could be 2, and probably people can just go in and, as you said, Angela, just be part of it, but not actually vote on it.
Can I just check something with you? I know a while ago we emailed out members a message from Anne Andrews, who's coordinating the hub, to say that she was putting together some groups to start looking at the syllabus review. And we did have some responses from our Wokingham Sacre members. I don't know if that's still, if people didn't opt in then and they want to now, is that still an option, Angela, or has that piece of work sort of finished now?
That particular piece of work has finished. That was asking group A and B members to get together in groups to discuss what they would want to see as part of a syllabus from their faith or belief perspective. So we are, I think Anne Andrews is putting together the responses from that as we speak, so that is a piece of work that's already been done. But yeah, definitely there will be opportunities for collaboration, and I think on the hub when we have our next meetings, we will discuss, you know, how that can work. During the summer term now, the other Sacres are going to be meeting, and they're going to be having those discussions as well. And we've got to think about then how best to take forward a kind of collaborative way of working that will be not too onerous on people, because, you know, we're working with volunteers who are generously giving up their time. Thank you very much, everybody. And that will, you know, best serve the design of a new syllabus. And I guess the benefits are great working collaboratively across so many Sacres, but also that there is the other side of the coin as well, where it needs a lot of concurrence and agreement as well, because it has to be unanimous. So yeah. So that's not a very specific answer for you there. But yeah, we're going to be thinking about how that can work. Yeah.
Just if I can come back, maybe I think last time there was small maybe disagreement, but I think on the whole, I think there was agreement that this is the right thing to do. I mean, I'm looking from a Islamic perspective. I can't see somebody in my Reading college is going to be different, or Slough is going to be different, to be honest, or others going to be different, to be honest. So there's a lot of similarities there. I think we have obviously all volunteers, limited resources and time. Everybody is busy, so I'm just thinking we need to be more effective. The other thing is that just looking at this date, right? This syllabus which you've got at the moment is from 2018 to 2023. So what are the timelines? When do we need to get this finished, and when that'll be actually operational?
We have actually taken the decision as Sacres to delay the syllabus review based upon you know, not wanting to create too much change for teachers during and following the pandemic. So that was the decision that was taken as the hub and as Sacres as well. The timeline ideally is what we would want is to have a syllabus that was ready to be rolled out to teachers by spring 2024. So a tight time frame there. Yeah. And then teachers have a year to adopt it and incorporate it and resource it before they have to start teaching it in full.
Just one last thing I'd say, you know, we talked about stress on the teachers. What I find is that every couple of years there's a change coming up, right? And they have to do so much learning and preparing, etc. I think that's a lot of pain. We are unnecessary sometimes. So we really need to think, right? If something is essential, is it really essential? But something you said which hasn't been incorporated, that makes sense to incorporate that. But I can't imagine it's going to be a vast, you know, rewriting. It's not the same thing as rewriting the syllabus. I think we need to be also mindful of that as well, because I'm sure the teachers here will be mindful, you know, if your syllabus changing every couple of years, then you have to restart, you know, again. So I think we just need to be mindful of that.
I think that's really important as a comment. And I also think that really reflects how important it is to get a syllabus right and to kind of future-proof it as much as possible. Because if in theory, if you have a different syllabus every 5 years, which could happen, then you know, a child can not go through their entire school career based on one syllabus, couldn't they? So it's really important to try and get it right and to try and make something that can just be, you know, tweaked and adjusted maybe as thinking changes in RE, and to come up with something as future-proof as possible, as I say.
Just add to that from the school perspectives that, of course, you were just saying about resources and actually where you can get the resources from. It needs to be something that we can use our current resources for, because, as you've already rightly said, RE is bottom of the pile when it comes to budgeting. So anything, if there's too many new elements for it, my £100 budget's not going to stretch very far in terms of quality resources.
I do feel, if I'm being candid with you all, this was written 5 years ago, and 5 years ago this was great. This is what we needed. But I do feel things have moved on a lot in the last 5 years. As Angela has said, the thinking around RE, RS has changed an awful lot. This just talks about 6 principal religions. Well, actually, we know it's not 6 principal religions anymore. It's very different. This doesn't talk about non-religious views. It doesn't talk about humanism. And I think we do need to be mindful of that as well. This is also a very thin document, I think, for a locally agreed syllabus. I picked this up and I think, okay, it was great 5 years ago, but then when I sort of moved to a new school and was looking at it for planning purposes, I was sort of head of RS, it wasn't necessarily beneficial or helpful. So again, I think that's also in the back of my mind as well. I'm not necessarily saying we need massive radical change, but the world is a very different place to what it was 5 years ago. Agree 100% about collaboration. And I think we work very well with our partners and friends across the hub. And I'm sure we will continue to do so moving forward with this. Rashid?
I think at this point, clarification from my point of view. I think what is missing as the view from humanist sort of point of view, and other things which are maybe not there, include them. But I was thinking, for example, the beliefs, which have been discussed in Christianity or Judaism or Islam, they're not going to change. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So what is there that probably more or less, yes, can change, refine, maybe change the wording or the language of that. But is that rewriting same as rewriting the whole thing? Probably not. So that's where it's coming from. So effort is required, but of course include the elements which are missing, but without rewriting it. That's where it's coming from. Because I'm just yes, 5 years ago, of course, with time we need to be, update our syllabus, but it's an update I was thinking of rather than rewriting it.
The other thing I'll say about this as well, though, this is very inquiry based. The national picture of education has changed an awful lot. It's very much it's not even skills, it's knowledge based. And this, I don't think necessarily reflects that it's a very much knowledge based curriculum. But again, these are kind of conversations that we can have in a lot more detail as we move forward in the sort of coming weeks and months. Julie, I know you had your hand up.
I hear what you're saying about not giving too much change, but change comes upon us and this doesn't match what we need to be doing, but it has to be looked at. Unfortunately, that involves change, but we are quite used to that. And I did want to echo what you said about it being quite a thin document. When you come to plan something new, actually a document that is too thin makes more work for you because you have to find a lot of things from other places, whereas a document that's got a bit more weight to it means you have less work because there's more of a core that says you've got to do it like this. So I really appreciate what you're saying about not wanting to throw too much change, but unfortunately we have to accept it sometimes.
I'm a little new to the to this curriculum, so it's a little overwhelming. So I need to sort of read it and get and digest it. Do we provide resources? Is this resourced in some way? So there's I appreciate if you've got primary or secondary teachers that are subject matter experts, then they perhaps have a degree of knowledge and resource already. But there may be many primary school teachers and possibly some secondary school teachers who are teaching this or try to meet the requirements of this. But are not, I don't have the necessary skills or expertise. So what resources do we provide?
So after this current syllabus was written, there were some support materials published that are available on the Wokingham website. But again, I haven't looked at them for a while. I can't remember. I don't know how detailed they are. But yeah, I guess the level of resource that we provide is another factor to discuss as part of the whole review of the syllabus. Yeah.
So it's part of this long and probably very complicated conversation about resources as well as curriculum.
I think it needs to be from a practical point of view. Legally, the duty that's incumbent upon the agreed syllabus conference is to design a syllabus. The resources that go with that are an optional extra, but when we're thinking about the pressures that are on teachers, and we know that lots of non-specialists are teaching RE in primary and secondary schools, then we need to be mindful of resourcing it so that it can be taught well in schools, I think.
I guess that when we take off our agreed syllabus conference hat and put on our Sacre hat, that's when we think about resources.
And we can think about it as the ASC as well. I think it's an important part of the discussion.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, look at this. I don't know if this is the time to mention this kind of thing and getting into the sort of meat of what's in here. But I think it's a really good opportunity to bring in issues that are sort of maybe a step back from why does this religious group think this particular thing? What festivals are celebrated in this particular religion? Particularly looking at the statistics that we saw earlier on in the meeting with the increase of people who have no religion. I'm keen that there be some element of a sort of almost a critical engagement with religion and religious organisations and why, for example, one would be religious. So from the point of view of an increasing number of people, there are people that go and do this seemingly really strange stuff, and they seem to be really into it, but I don't know why that goes on. So people's motivations in order, understanding people's motivations to be part of religious communities. And also things like we've talked about mental health crises in schools and interest in general society, benefits that come about from being part of a religious community, mental health, those kind of things, and also a kind of critical engagement with the negative impacts that being part of a particularly organised religious community can have, the things that can develop into, and perhaps sort of empowering people that are involved in those kinds of religious communities to think about, what is this bringing me? Is this a good thing? Are the things that are happening in my religious community okay? And giving them that ability to sort of step back and take a sort of a meta view, if that makes sense.
Andrew, I was just thinking about the Real People, Real Faith materials as John was talking. I don't know if you're familiar with them, John, but the project that the Hub has been working on for the last couple of years is a project called Real People, Real Faith, which essentially is little videoed interviews with members of faith communities, asking them questions, I think very similar to those questions you've just been saying, like, what do you gain from being a member of your faith group? And I'm just thinking, Angela, that maybe our new syllabus could somehow reference, because that's such a brilliant resource, those videos, isn't it? That maybe we could use those as support materials for our new syllabus.
Yeah, I think we need to think about the Real Faith, the Real People, Real Faith project, and how that can fit in with the with any new syllabus that we come up with. The videos are based on some of the questions from this syllabus. However, they're being used nationwide, so teachers from across the UK are accessing those videos and using them in the classroom, and finding them useful, presumably, because lots of them are downloading them. So yeah, I think that there does need to be, whatever we come up with, there needs to be opportunities for criticality, and for exploring personal worldviews and motivations for faith and belief as well. So I think that's really important.
Yes, I think what you were saying about incorporating those Real People, Real Faith, actually referencing them in the document in some way or in the support resources would be really good, because I know that we would make better use of them if everything was linked, and almost the crossing the bridges stuff was linked in as well. That would be really good, because I know it's there and I have to go to different places, whereas if you go to one place, you use it more effectively. And also, if any support resources or the way it's structured is mindful of things like understanding Christianity, that as a church school, there's an expectation you will use, but then there's an impact on if you're using the these resources that are across. I was just trying to explain to you, some of the units are like lots of different light festivals from different religions, lots of different books of holy books. And then the moment you start then doing understanding Christianity, which is just one religion, you then haven't got enough weight of other religions in there without going beyond your locally agreed syllabus. You're looking at other resources. So just be mindful of what's out there and what people are using when it's put together would be quite helpful.
So Angela, just as a path sort of moving forward, so you want feedback from members by 7th of July? Yep. Okay. And then Angela and Emily and myself had a quick conversation about our autumn meeting. Probably a little bit different. It's going to be more focused on this. So we will run through the nuts and the bolts of Sacre as we always do very quickly. But because this is our main focus moving forward, this is what our autumn meeting will be around. And obviously we'll try and get paperwork out to everyone as soon as possible. Is there anything else I've missed, Angela or Emily? No. It's one of our longest meetings for a while. It's honestly been really lovely to see everyone. Thank you. And like I said, 7th of July is a key date for everyone. And I look forward to seeing you all virtually in the autumn. Enjoy your summer, everyone. And we can stop YouTube.
Thank you all.